Welcome, friends and fellow PC game enthusiasts, to the games of tomorrow, playable today. Yes, that line makes me sound like a Bioshock vending machine, but it's all true, I tells ya. I've been looking for demos and playable prototypes for games that are far from release. It's a chance to see how they're shaping up and understand how these things evolve over time. At the time of writing, all these demos are available for free. There are links to all 8 in the description box below, so make sure to give them a go. It took me a while to realize that Beware, an upcoming driving survival horror game, is the current manifestation of driving survival, a game that caught my eye with a series of audio and visual test videos back in 2016. Inspired by the designer's family fleeing communist Czechoslovakia in the 80s, it's a nightmarish chase game where your dilapidated old banger is pursued by cars full of blubbery white monster men. They'll attempt to smash you from the road, wedge you against fences, and pull you from the car. The demo is bloody terrifying, then dropping you into a field with no context or objective, just leaving you to drive until you catch the eye of someone horrible. The moment that rival headlights appear in your rearview mirror is spectacularly creepy. A small part of your brain wants to slow down and admire the lighting effects, but the low, droning soundtrack reminds you that this would be a truly horrible idea. And so the demo continues until you're caught, or you decide to close it and have a lie down. Already there's lots of speculation and secret sharing going on. For example, you can find an old lady and follow her for some cryptic happenings. And I hope the final game maintains this ambiguity for us to pick over. Next up is The Good Life. Nothing to do with the charming British comedy show, although considering this game is an RPG set in a quaint English town filled with eccentric neighbours, you'd be forgiven for thinking it was. Instead of getting up to hilarious japes with the posh people next door, This Good Life is all about solving mysteries. That this is spun from the mind of Mr. Deadly Premonition, aka Swery, gives you an indication that this won't just be quaint Miss Marple territory. Naomi is a highfalutin journalist, or not so high as she's moved to this town to pay off her debt. Armed with just a camera, she starts nosing through the weird and wonderful business of the local people to solve a murder. This demo, released back when the Kickstarter was beginning to look a bit rocky, serves as an introduction to some of the townsfolk and to give you a taste of playing as Peeping Tom. In action, it plays a bit like Beyond Good and Evil, if you stripped that game of everything but the photojournalism. And if Jade had to work for a chap who was in love with a truck. I'm pretty sure I saw a scandalous documentary about such things on Channel 5. It's reassuring proof that despite taking a trip to the countryside, Swery is the same oddball we've always enjoyed. You know the phrase, shoot first, ask questions later? Yeah, Police Stories is the exact opposite of that. In fact, it's more like think first and shoot later. Or even better, don't shoot. Shout instead and hope that you can scare a perp into a pair of handcuffs. There is shooting, of course. On the surface, this looks like Hotline Miami, and its gunfights are just as fast and furious, but Police Stories rewards you for keeping a level head and using your partner to pin down angles of attack. Once your boost hits the door, it becomes a lightning-fast reaction test as your cone of vision fills the room and you pray your buddy is quick on the trigger.
Roger. We have a suspect down.
The free demo, released as part of last year's Kickstarter campaign, sees you tackle 2 missions. But you aren't seeing the second without squeezing every drop of justice from the first. That means when you go about neutralizing the threat and rescuing civilians, you gotta moderate that itchy trigger finger of yours and keep blunders to a minimum. And by blunders, I mean horrific mass murders rather than, say, slipping on a banana skin. With gadgets at your disposal, and options to apprehend suspects peacefully, methods of forcing submission without weapons and firing warning shots, you have to, at the very least, engage your brain outside of all guns blazing. And there's potentially endless fun as it randomly places enemies, so that every try is different. There's absolutely no getting used to a formula or perfecting a run. You must be flexible. Much like real policing, I imagine. XCOM was a game I always wanted to play, but never quite got around to. Now that the Xenonauts 2 demo has been made available, a strategy science fiction expedition and spiritual successor to XCOM, I can finally welcome some aliens to Earth, with a punch in the face, obviously. Well, after a lot of tutorialing, of course, and thankfully there is one. This game is set in an alternate history to Xenonauts 1, and takes us in a different direction. Turn-based ground combat returns, of course, requiring your top-notch strategic management skills, where you can blow aliens out of their socks. If aliens do in fact wear socks, It's now in 3D, so you can appreciate how horribly outnumbered you are from more creative angles. With a range of emergent missions to tackle based on your actions in-game, your soldiers are put to the test and once again gain rank with each mission they complete alive, because they can all too easily become kibbles and bits. The final game also involves base management, similar to modern XCOM, but the demo focuses on the heat of the battle. It throws you into the middle of a mission where you, as well as the National Guard, take on the alien threat armed with nothing but a handful of rookies and some hit probabilities that have a 100% chance to cause accusations of unfairness. Or you can play like me, doing a lot of creeping around as you curse yourself for not having played XCOM sooner.
Police detected bearing 190. Engage.
I've never seen Top Gun, but supposedly that's what this game is. Loads of airborne dogfighting, albeit without a scene where you dance around in your pants to old-time rock and roll. I may be confusing my Tom Cruise films here. Considering the game is still in alpha and is largely the work of a one-man team, this is a staggeringly polished slice of aerial action. There's 3 different missions to swoop through, but really, they're just an excuse to flip your plane, and your stomach, over some gorgeous cloud banks, and to unleash swooping smoke trails from homing missiles. Is there anything more satisfying than watching a trail of smoke end with a sudden flash of orange fireball?
Kill confirmed.
If you enjoyed the Ace Combat games back in the day, this is basically every bit as solid as those, except free. With a range of difficulties available, Project Wingman doesn't discriminate against skill level. You can go in with a full flight stick setup, but the game won't judge you if you want to plug in an Xbox controller and fill the skies with arcade fire. Think evasive maneuvers, flying bullets, high risk and high reward, and of course, the odd wingman to help you out. If you like The Sims, or more specifically placing your Sims in horrible scenarios, Orphan Age is for you. You're managing virtual lives, only these are all youngsters, stuck in an unforgiving dystopian future. Being stuck in the Sims swimming pool with no stairs out would be a holiday for these kids. All of the children vary in age and skills, which affects their susceptibility to being micromanaged. The younger they are, the harder they are to control. A backstory is procedurally generated for each one, so no child is alike. Whether they're an explorer, talkative, traumatized, they each demonstrate a personality and skill set all their own. You use this to your advantage as the game is all about exploration, exploitation, expansion, and empathy. So resource management is key, as will be collaboration with other characters in the base you're setting up. You have the chance to experience all of this in the 30 minutes you're given in the demo. Scouring a base for crafting materials and looking out for a sibling brings to mind this war of mine, only without the adults to shield the kids from the rough realities. But it's a neat perspective shift. In the immortal words of Pink Floyd, we don't need no education, but we might need a cooking station and crowbar to find all important supplies. Rainswept is a surreal murder mystery that plays like a dream. Or is it a nightmare? I mean, there are literal dream sequences, all very David Lynch, but when you wake up, there is the hellish reality of dealing with small-minded small towns. Or worse, property planning committees. Ugh. You play as Anderson, a big city detective who chain smokes his way through the kind of lazy operation that's become synonymous with small-town police procedurals. You're trying to solve a crime, a couple found dead in their kitchen. Using a fairly simple interface, you can chat with those around you, observe and interact with the world so you can make the kind of mental notes on par with Columbo. The more you know, the more complex it becomes. Although I get the distinct impression that Anderson hides just as many secrets. I don't think you can graduate from Detective Academy without at least one skeleton in the closet. Just one more thing. Rainswept excels not just with its beautiful color palette of rich orangey reds, blue hues, and teal greens, but in how it captures Pineview's colorful social attitudes. Solving the double homicide means climbing deeper into the soap opera of the daily lives of the townsfolk, something you immediately have a chance to get stuck into in the demo, which does offer a good chunk of detecting to get to grips with. It's been so long since we've had a good skateboarding game. Remember when Tony Hawk and Skate ruled the roost, turning a silly bit of wood on wheels into the most compelling, high-score chasing device on the planet? Well, until Tony Hawk decided to make us play with a motion-controlled board and put the genre in permanent traction. Session sees the plaster cast coming off and the genre taking a few nervous steps back onto the ramps. Like Skate, It simulates the sport through intuitive controls, in which each thumbstick represents a foot, and so moves correspond to the dual stick movements, and balancing systems that put greater emphasis on where you shift your weight on the board. Session, in the spirit of the craft of course, also encourages freedom and fluid movement, not at all restricted to meters and arcadey point feedback, opting instead to let you trick how you want and when you want, and feel your way around the park and board. With the emphasis on practice making perfect, naturally that means you have to watch demo footage of me knocking out my teeth again and again. This is definitely the best knee-scraping sim I've played this year. Thankfully, the demo gives me ample space to improve before the finished game arrives next year. Anyway, that's your lot. It's surprisingly hard to finish a video with a big pile of free demos to distract you. Hopefully there were 1 or 2 things in there that caught your eye. As always, do offer up your own suggestions so that I may feast on further free delights. If you really wanted to do me a solid, you'd subscribe to the channel and get more PC-related videos pumped into your eyes. And remember to hit the notifications bell, or all our new videos will disappear into the abyss. I look forward to reading your comments, and I hope to see you in the next video.